Welcome back, developers. In this video, we want to look at more advanced SQL queries, where we look at some of our previous select statements and see how do we join all these concepts together to find more meaningful and useful data from our database. So let's say, for example, we're asked, hey, I want a list of every customer that's in our customers table who has actually placed an order. Well, we can do this pretty easily, actually. So I'm going to come over here and say select star from customers. This part seems simple. I'm getting all of my data from customers. But now what I need to do is filter out the ones that haven't placed an order, because I know there's probably a lot of people who signed up and never made that order. So I'm going to use a where clause, and I can say something like customer ID in, and then I'm going to use parentheses. And inside my parentheses, I can put a subquery that is another query. So I'm going to say select once again. This time I'm also going to say customer ID. However, this is going to be from orders. So now I'm getting the customers that are in orders, and I'm saying, hey, only show my customers where the customer ID is found inside that order table. If I execute this query, you notice I see customers 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 15. So these are my customers who have actually placed an order. Now, you'll notice that it has last purchase. It says null. We're going to ignore that. That data was added after the fact. I can see all my information that I need to see right here based upon who placed an order. We have approximately 20 customers inside of our customers table. So how do we see how many customers have not placed an order? Well, this is pretty easy. I'm going to come over here to my where clause and say customer ID, and then I'm going to specify not in. And over here, this is a list of every customer who has not placed an order. And as these customers place an order, they'll no longer show up in this query. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll convert this query into a view. That way I can just quickly run it and put in some sort of report for managers and things like that. And so this is how we can take a little bit more complex types of SQL statements, put inside a view, that way it's easily usable by someone else. And we saw how to create views in a previous video that you can look at. It's inside this playlist. But let's look at other things. Let's say I want to join multiple tables. Well, we've already seen how we join two tables, the customer and the orders. But what happens if we want to join one more, the shipping label? So let's see how we're going to do that real quick. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to keep the select star from customers, and now I'm going to do an inner join on orders on customers dot customer ID equals orders dot customer ID, and then I want to join on my shipping label table. However, I might have items that are in my orders table that is not in my shipping. So I'm going to use a left join shipping labels. And since that's kind of a long name, I want to simplify this down. So I'm going to use an alias like I saw in a previous video. So say as, I'm just going to call this SL, short for shipping label. Once again, use an on orders dot order ID equals SL dot order ID. And if I run this, here is every customer that's attached to an order. I can come over here and see the order and the customer ID that matches up. And then I come over a little bit further and I can see, hey, here's all my information for my shipping label. Only 2 orders are shown as having shipping labels created for them. Now, others are not there. You might say, okay, well, why is this? Well, some of them are in the created stage or processing stage. Maybe some were picked up instead of shipped. There's a lot of reasons why a shipping label might not exist. We don't care about that. We just care about getting the data that we need. And here's how we can see this. Now, I did select star. What happens if I wanted to do maybe only see the first name and last name of the customer, the product total, and then the shipping label info? Well, all I have to do is come over here in the star and say, well, that's easy. Customers dot first name, comma, customers dot last name, comma, orders dot, and then my product total, and then I'm going to do SL dot star. And the SL, if you remember correctly, is for my shipping label. I can execute that, and now I see a little bit more compacted data, what I really need to see here. Now you might say, wow, this SQL statement is really big. How do I make it more manageable for me to use? Well, that's actually pretty easy. In fact, a lot of times what we'll do is say, okay, select, and we'll put all that information on one line. And then we'll have a from, and we'll put all that information on another line. And then we'll do the where clause and the order by clause. And we'll do all these things, and we'll put them all in separate lines. And if we need to go to a separate line, then we just indent it so that it carries over a little bit easier. For example, I might take this left join because it's getting kind of long out there, hit the enter key and a tab. You say, well, wait a second, is this going to run now that you put it on separate lines? Well, I come over here to execute, and you'll notice it did a quick little flash, and there it was. So yes, this still runs. SQL statements can span multiple lines, especially if it's to make it easier to read. The computer doesn't care, but we care. Now, what if we wanted to get information while using an aggregate function? And by say getting information, I mean get non-aggregate data from another table. Well, let's see how we're going to do that. So I'm going to start off the same here. I'm going to say select customer's first name, comma, customer's last name. I'm going to do order product total. Then I'm going to do a count of the number of orders that they had. So I'm going to say count star. And then I'm going to alias this because otherwise it's going to show up as a column that's called count star, which isn't very useful for me. So I'm going to say as order count. Simple little thing like that. Come down to a new line. From customers inner join orders on customers.customer ID equals orders.customer ID. Now, if I run this, remember from previous examples, it's going to just limit us really badly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a group by, and it's going to be customers dot first name, comma, customers dot last name. If I execute that, we get a little bit more information. Now we have our customers. We have how many orders each of them has placed. We're only seeing where there's a match, so we're only looking at the customers that have actually placed orders. We're ignoring everything else as a 0. But I want to only see people who have made more than one order. Having count star greater than or equal to 2. And when I do this, I get a chance to now group my data, use the having to filter out data, as well as create an inner join between them. Now, here's some basic information, but what happens if I want to sort it? Well, I can then do order by customers dot last name. And there you can see it is now ordered by their last name. A pretty easy little thing to do just by grouping and adding things together. All these were things that we've seen in previous videos. It's just how do we piece them together? How do we know how to do that? Well, part of it is we just start asking and start looking at piecing them together. Part of it is knowing what questions to ask in order to know how to display and show them off. And so these are just a couple of simple examples that let you see how we can do different types of select statements that we can use inside of our SQL in order to get more meaningful information. Hopefully you found this video helpful. In our next video, we're going to have information on how we can add new data to an existing table and update data that's already in an existing table. So stay tuned and be looked out for that, which is next in this playlist.